I was white in this blitz game, and we played the Sicilian defense, and black went for the accelerated dragon here with G6. I like to play C4, the Maroczy bind. I had a video earlier introducing this opening. I'll put a link in the description if you're interested. Okay, then bishop G7 attacks my knight. I defend it with my bishop. Knight F6 attacks E4, so I defend that. This is all standard mainline stuff. D6. Bishop E2, controlling the G4 square, getting ready to castle kingside. Castles. Now, I think castling kingside is by far the most popular move in this position. So my move is probably an inaccuracy here. I played queen to d2, and I just want to attack on the king side. I want to castle queenside. I want to form this battery, maybe put my bishop on h6, trade it off for the dark square defender, push my h-pawn, and attack. Okay, it's a blitz game. So black trades knights in the center. He plays a strange move, bishop e6, probably not the most effective place for the bishop. This pawn isn't going anywhere. I can play b3 to further support it. Maybe bishop on d7 is more flexible. Also, you can move your e-pawn if your bishop isn't there. Okay, b3, knight d7. Okay, unleashing his bishop. I'm not sure that was such a good move either, allowing me to so easily trade off his dark square defender. But then again, I don't have a dark square bishop to take advantage of those dark squares. My queen will have to do. h4, I begin my attack. I want to play h5, so my opponent stops me from doing that. And I just decide to sack a pawn and rip open the position anyway with g4. He takes with the h-pawn. Maybe it's better to take with the bishop. At least that way we trade a pair of bishops and I have one less attacking unit on the king side here. But he takes with the pawn, and I push the pawn again on the h file. So I'm trying to just open up the h file. I just want to take here and bring my queen in here. Oops, bring my queen in there and just mate him. All right, so he defends on the h file. Wise move, rook h8. And then I play a dubious move here. The computer hated this when I analyzed it with an engine. Queen g5. Okay, apparently that gives him a big advantage, although it's not clear exactly how. There's no immediate refutation to my move. There's no tactical oversight on my part. But this move just isn't as aggressive as it seems. My reasoning was, well, I'm pinning the pawn, so it can't take here. Also, I'm not worried about getting driven away with this pawn move because that loses protection of g6, and I would take g6 with my queen and probably win the game. Okay, and in this position, black moves rook to c8. The computer suggested knight to e5, although its plans are very long range. It's hard to see why that's such a good move. Although one thing that comes to my mind is it does now allow black to kick out my queen with f6 because the knight guards g6. Okay, so maybe that was the way to go, but he played rook c8. I castled long. Rook c5 hitting my queen. So I blocked that attack with my knight. We trade off another pair of minor pieces. Knight f6, trying to defend the king side. Now I open up the h file. His rook here is misplaced on c5, so I should be able to control the h file here. I have a pair of rooks. Okay, he plays f takes g6. I get a pawn back here, and now the material is equal. So I think he misplayed this, and I'm winning again because his king is so wide open. All right, knight takes g4. After knight takes g4, I played a good Zwischenzug, in-between move. Instead of recapturing right away, I decided to trade rooks, and my point was, after the queen took, I had this nice second Zwischenzug. Queen takes pawn check. Okay, and that's going to give me an extra pawn, maybe even another one here. I'll be able to do a fork and get the knight back. My opponent moved his king back to g8, which allows me to fork. Now what would have happened if he didn't move to g8? Well, then he'd have to move to the h file, I reasoned. So after he moves to h6, then I would get the queen. So he can't do that. So he did play king to g8, and I forked the knight, and then king to g7, and I took the knight. So I won that pawn. The computer I found funny suggested another Zwischenzug here I could have played, which was queen takes this pawn. And the point is I'm attacking the rook, and he's got to save it, and after he saves it I should be able to again win this knight back or continue attacking. But it looks really complicated, so I didn't go for that. I just grabbed the knight, realizing, okay, now I'm up a pawn, my king is much safer, his rook is misplaced, so my queen and rook here should be able to attack the king and win. He only has this one defender in position right now. So queen f8, queen d7 check, queen blocks. Now I don't want to trade queens and go into an endgame just a single pawn up. I want to preserve my winning chances as much as possible. So I take the pawn, I attack the rook, and it further gets misplaced over here on a5, so that rook is completely out of the game. It is threatening to take this pawn here, maybe get some counterplay against my king. So I took the time to push the pawn to a4. So now his rook really is misplaced. He tries to activate it though with rook to a6. Queen to e5 check, king to g8. I get my rook into play with a threat. I've got a mate threat here on h8. He stops that with queen to g7, guarding that square, offering a trade of queens. But it turns out that's probably the worst move in the position. It ends the game the quickest possible way here, although there really was no defense to this attack. This allowed me a nice tactic, queen to e8 check. The only legal move is to block it with the queen, and then this is a very standard tactic, rook to h8 check. And my opponent resigned because if he takes the rook, he loses his queen. If he doesn't take the rook, he comes up, he loses his queen, and it gets mated. Okay, so thanks for watching the game.